Good day, everyone. Our panel, this second panel for today, is on digital skills for inclusive growth. So this session will be looking at how strengthening digital skills among women and girls can drive broader social and economic inclusion in Lesotho. So I'll call on the stage our panelists. First, we'll have Ms. Diana Mopisao. She's the IT faculty manager at Lincoln Queen University. Okay, I'm going to read her bio in the meantime. Ms. Diana Mopisa is an ICT lecturer and faculty manager at Lincoln Queen University of Creative Technology, with over 16 years of experience in higher education, holding a bachelor's degree in computer science and statistics, an MBA, and currently enrolled in MSc in data science. She specializes in systems analysis, user experience, project management, data management, and data analytics. Wow. Ms. Miopisa has contributed meaningfully to curriculum development, research supervision, and academic leadership. She's committed to nurturing young talent, promoting inclusive access to digital skills, and leveraging technology for impactful business practice. She firmly believes technology is the most powerful enabler of sustainable development and social empowerment. Let's please welcome Ms. Miopisa. Okay, our second panelist is Ms. Turugari Mukai, who is the lecturer at Butu University. Let's please welcome her. Okay, Ms. Mukai Turugari, I hope I pronounced it correctly, is a digital transformation consultant and computer science lecturer with over 20 years of experience delivering impactful technology-driven solutions across Southern Africa. She's committed to advancing digital transformation by leveraging technology to strengthen communities and support sustainable development through inclusive innovation. She contributed to the implementation of the Community Digital Inclusion Model, which is CDIM in short, which led to the rollout of 40 community digital learning centers across Lesotho, expanding access, strengthening capacity among youth and women, and enabling their participation in the digital economy, and women, and enabling it in the digital economy. Let's please welcome her. Our third panelist is Mrs. Mamutsamai Nkwe. So, about her, she is business applications manager with 15 years experience in ICT across academia, industry, telecommunications, and government. She believes that ICT plays a significant role in the development of Lesotho and a key factor in globalization. Let's please welcome her. Thank you, ladies, and good day to you. Okay. Okay, thank you. This is from, our panelists are from the institutions of higher learning. I'm sure we're all aware of that. So, as I mentioned, this is more on digital skills for inclusive growth. So I'm going to give a general opening question to all of you, which one of you will answer. So our question goes as follows. When we talk about digital skills for inclusive growth in Lesotho, what does meaningful inclusion actually look like in practice, especially for women and girls? Okay, I'm told to hold it a little bit. I think our session has not been recorded. Thank you. Okay, ladies, I'm going to start with our general question. Yes. When we talk about digital skills for inclusive growth in Lesotho, what does meaningful inclusion actually look like in practice, especially for women and girls? And where are we currently falling short as a country? I will start with you, Mayor Mopisa.
Okay, thank you, and good morning to everybody. Thank you for that question. I'll start first by looking at what meaningful inclusion actually means. In the context of inclusion, it does not only say being part of or being in attendance of something, but when we talk about meaningful, we refer to the impact beyond being part of something. So in essence, for women and girls, when it comes to meaningful inclusion, especially when it comes to the digital space, we're looking at the exposure, but this exposure it has to relate to an outcome which actually benefits it could be an individual or the community that they live in. We could look at it in a sense that maybe we have a woman or a female or a girl who actually learns a certain skill, but they delve into maybe entrepreneurial ventures whereby the entire community benefits, or we can relentlessly talk about maybe the leadership scope whereby these women or girls become part of a decision-making body, maybe at a policy level, whereby there is impact that can actually be measured to a certain extent. So we are not talking about just maybe attending a basic technology class, an introduction to a certain conference where a girl or a female participant becomes part of, but we are looking at what happens beyond that, which can actually contribute to a certain extent. Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Ma'am Kwe, please.
Meaningful inclusion for me, for young women and for young girls and women, is inclusion of everyone to have access to the technology, the skills, and the finance to actually contribute to financial development or the economy as a whole, the digital economy. And this is a very cumbersome topic, actually. I don't know if maybe I went too much into it, but the gaps that we have are the rural-urban divide. We want inclusion to go as far as rural girls, elderly women, rural women, and the visually impaired, people with disabilities. You know, inclusion should be encompassing everybody, all the groups that could be maybe a bit disadvantaged, as we are seeing that there's a financial divide because of that gender divide that has been talked about a lot in the other sessions, that women do not have the right access to finance in order to afford the devices that they need in order to gather usage of the technology that we have, because we want women using technology to grow their small businesses. We want women using the technology that we have to access financial systems, to access your M-Pesa, EcoCash, all the systems that we have. So where we are as a country in practice now, there are campaigns, community-based campaigns that are teaching women and girls in the rural areas to use M-Pesa and EcoCash, but then there's a shortfall where there isn't much teaching on the whole technology usage, because there's so much that a person can do with a smartphone that I think that they're not using. And in order to grow their businesses or to grow their everyday life, to be able to do research on health tips, anything that they need to use those. So I think skills and capacity building is where we are short, we are falling short. And there are initiatives, but they are recent and I don't think people know about them. There are initiatives like that the Prime Minister launched, the inclusion facility that has been formed, the inclusion fund that it's 400 million that has been apportioned last year in order to help with women and youth to have access to funds that as the other sessions the other panelists were talking about the fact that women and young girls do not have access to finance in order to finance their small businesses. So it's very important that those initiatives where we are the shortfalls that we have as a country, the government and other institutions are actually helping. There's another initiative that has been launched in February recently, whereby Central Bank in collaboration with Alliance have started an initiative to actually help fund businesses and MSMEs. They are going to give them credit. I hope, well, I haven't really read deep into how it's going to happen, but I hope the requirements are not hefty, because what is limiting people to actually apply for credit is all those requirements that are needed that people cannot fulfill because they do not have, maybe they need to have a building, they need to have a license, they need to have all those. So Naraki Diapole at the street, she does not have all those things, and she needs to be able to also participate. So we have those gaps because of the financial shortfall. We have the gap of women being able to afford the technology, women and girls. I think I've said a mouthful, so let me leave for my colleagues to talk about it. Thank you.
Still morning. Morning, everybody. Thank you, Dr. Mohasi, for the interesting question. For me, when you talk about digital inclusion, specifically digital skill for inclusive growth, it brings me back to our experiences when we were working towards the digital learning centers within the communities, where we actually identified that inclusion is not just about having a device or access in your home, because some people actually don't have those or they share them. It includes them having the actual skills for them to be able to derive the understanding and contribute to the digital economy. From our experiences, when we went up the mountains, there are actually some areas where they didn't have adequate internet. They didn't have adequate electricity. working with the innovative group that we had to find appropriate approaches that the women and youth specifically have access to digital skills training. That also included one of the schools. They don't have electricity. They have an adequate solar panel system. We actually end up using tablets to teach on digital skills. Another important thing that I look at, besides the issue of access, is the actual skills that are being taught. My interest when you talk about digital population is not us who are in the urban areas, as indicated earlier on by my colleague. It's the rural communities who are actually being left behind. So digital skills to them is not about them being able to program. It's not about being able to look at AI algorithms. They don't even know what cybersecurity is. So it starts by having appropriate skills which enable them to have an appreciation on what else they can do with their device. We have high or adequate statistics that mention actually 40-something% of Basotho have access to the internet. And if you look further, it even stipulates that more women actually use internet more than men. The question is, what do we use internet for? So we need to go up and look at the entire ecosystem and define what inclusion means to us in Lesotho. The issue of affordability, the issue of access, the issue of what or how we can align all the skills with the national mandate, looking at the digital transformation policy. All that has to be defined. So in earnest, I can say that as much as we, to some extent, have appropriate skills to use like basic IT components, we need to talk about inclusive growth, which is how do we have youth and women participate in the economic growth digitally. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, ladies. Yes, it's very true. Inclusion is not just about having devices. You can have it and not be able to use it. So there are certain factors that we have to take into consideration. Okay, I will go to other questions, which still go to all of you. We would like to know, are we equipping our learners with the right type of digital skills for today's economy? Or are we still focused on outdated competencies? And what should fundamentally change? So, Mengu, I'm going to start with you. Yes.
Yes, should I speak particularly in Lorotodi or as a whole?
You can talk broadly, and you can also focus on EP. Yes.
Okay. Yes, we are, I think the world, or rather I would say COVID, it actually changed the paradigm. It really shifted the world to actually look into making sure that we equip our students with the digital skills that are necessary. My daughter at primary school, she's now doing computer. I never got to do that. I saw a computer at tertiary level. So I think e-learning platforms, Google Classrooms, there's so many e-learning platforms that are available now. And I think maybe we need to move towards teaching the whole internet community of the right usage of social media as well. TikTok has videos that show learners how to do maths. There's so much to learn from online and on TV. There are so many tools that have been used. At Lorotodi particularly, we are using Sakai as our e-learning platform to make sure that our students are using the digital platforms that we have. In fact, they apply online. So once they land into the system and they get a student number, they now start using the system to register, to actually do everything that, view results up until the end of their graduation. So I believe Lesotho has really moved away from really being a country that whereby digital skills are really left behind. And there are institutions like Girl Coding Academy. There's an academy that's actually teaching girls how to go beyond the classroom. I think there needs to be more awareness of that so that parents can enroll their girls there. So I think we are doing a lot. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, May. Let's go to May Mupisa.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Mohasi. In response to your question, whether we are actually moving towards the economy that we are in, looking at the pace of technology, I would say we are doing a little bit of both. We are still stuck maybe in the traditional way of delivery, while at the same time there's one foot which is extended towards the new way of teaching where technology is actually incorporated. Now, looking at it, we still go to, especially in educational settings, we're still expecting students to memorize and then I'll put that in course, regurgitate whatever they've learned onto a paper, and then we're still marking. And in some instances or cases, we still want them to go into the practical part of whatever we're delivering. So hence why I say we are doing a little bit of both. However, looking at the rate at which technology is advancing and the rate at which we are expected to respond to the age in which we are in, we need to hasten a little bit or try to meet the pace at which technology is moving by being adaptive, moving towards being more application driven over the old way or traditional way of teaching. And in considering the way we are, of course, offering our courses, or how students are learning from primary or maybe going over into the university, there are, of course, programs that are exposing students from a young age to be able to adapt to the technological era. However, at the same time, there are those particular technological aspects or courses that need to really be taught from an early age, which we are not looking into right now. For example, we can talk about AI. Currently, almost everybody is exposed to AI who have devices, but we are still more prohibitive, not allowing students to be more engaging with AI, appreciate it more, and use it in a productive way. Instead, we want to stop them, whereas we need to be more embracing to the technology, because if you look at the sentiment maybe that was shared not so long ago, that with technology and AI, jobs are going to be taken away. No jobs are going to be taken away. Actually, those who are without knowledge are the ones who will be left behind, because we need to move together along with the rate at which technology is moving. So one needs to change, actually, so that we become part of the reformation. We become part of the transformation of technology. We need to look at the way that we assess. Not just ask students questions where they respond from their memory, and then they simply put that on paper as is copy and paste. But we need to look at the learning part of it, where students are able to produce something out of whatever they have learned, and they need also be able to adapt to the different technologies that are being introduced, especially today, since it is very, very, the rate at which the technology is changing is quite huge. The way we are delivering, we are from an era where there was a chalkboard and a board, and teachers or lecturers used to write on it. The delivery or the instruction today has to change. We need to be more adaptive into a mode that allows students to use gadgets and devices, as well as allow students in classrooms to be able to access the internet. the teacher or the lecturer is not the only one who knows everything. Students can contribute within the learning environment by using the devices, and together we build whatever knowledge base there is. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm going to have more further questions, but let's listen to Ma'am Itekeri.
Okay.
That's good,
Looking at what my colleagues have said, when you talk about digital skills and their adequacy and competences, we need to start applying appropriate digital skills frameworks that are used internationally. So we do have UNESCO Digital Skills Framework, we have an AI framework. I understand Lesotho has a draft digital skills framework, which I believe is still under review. That is quite important because it defines the current skills that you expect the citizens to have and how those can be layered in. I actually think we cannot specifically say that any of those digital skills are outdated, but what matters is where they're applied. So I will not expect a lady from the village to be able to use advanced technologies. I would expect them to start by appreciating basic skills, and then they use a layered approach for them to be able to understand and appreciate additional components. At the same time, I would also want them to be able, if one is a farmer, I want them to be able to use those skills in their farming skills. I want them to be able to translate a basic paper-based system, or how they compute their profits on paper into an Excel sheet. And at the end of the day, we talk about data analytics. So to me, it's like a layered approach that has to be adequately implemented. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Adding my own questions towards this. We're talking about equipping learners. How about equipping of the instructors, the teachers, the lecturers themselves? What's our view on that? I'll start with you.
Thank you very much. So when I came to Lesotho, I was given a name. So you might as well give me a new one. Yeah, so just to look at the trainings, I understand there are a lot of initiatives that are taking place, training the teachers in the schools. A lot of funds have been issued and distributed. But my main concern was the teachers got the devices before they actually got the skills, which is one thing I think we need to relook at. We had lots of funding coming and focusing on the devices. I won't mention much into my own experiences, but we did go into some schools where we actually found laptops locked up in cabinets and having rules and regulations on how they are used and when they are used. And for me, it boils down to the issue of the digital skills, to say, are we doing enough? So we are actually in the process of enhancing that. I go and refer back to the initiative that we participated in. And one of the things that they did was to integrate appropriate trainers within the communities. And these are not only for the communities, also for the teachers within the schools. So also the teachers participated in the digital transformation through appropriate digital skills training. Looking at the academia sphere, there are now programs that allow people to enroll online, etc., etc. But do we have, who drives it? In some instances and countries, you can be told, I understand that in a nation that I used to work in, we were told you cannot be teaching if you don't have a basic certificate in IT, right? That was the policy. So the question is, which policies do we have in place to push these teachers to that? And what are we availing to enable that? So at the end of the day, I think we go back into the issue of policies, the issue of requirements, and availability of resources. If I'm not required to do a training or a course, chances are very high. If I don't see the need, I might not do it. So we need to relook at all those factors. Thank you.
That's very true. Thank you, Ma'am. Ma'am, got your view?
Okay, I laughed when you asked this. We are trying to equip the lecturers with enough amount of training to actually equip them with the systems. But I have a rule where I go like, you cannot learn to ride a bicycle unless you actually ride a bicycle. So the only way to learn to ride a bike is actually to ride it. So I'm very harsh and actually in my approach towards my systems and implementing them. So I do not allow anybody to actually be printed out like a payslip. Some of them, they're still going behind my back, going through accounts and say they want a printout of the payslip, but there's a digital mark on their payslips online. Lorotodi is actually so well ahead digitally. I do not expect anybody signing up a leave form. So the approach is that I don't expect a leave form. I found a pile like this of leave forms that were sitting at reception waiting for HR, and I was like, what's happening here? So with the lecturers, we had a very hard time in actually having them to actually use the systems. So I always go at the top and then enforce the systems to be actually used. So they were asking me to take them to India. The system that we have, academia, was developed in India. They wanted to take a course in India. Maybe they'll understand better if they went to India. What will that change? India was not going to change anything. We needed to change our approach and our acceptance that this is a digital era. Where are we? People need to see where the world is going. And like Dr. Dennis said, AI is going to take over this, now creating another gap when we already had a gap of resistance to technology. So now AI is creating another gap because we wanted to now acquire a system, an anti-plagiarism system, because they are now using AI to answer their questions. The assignments, we no longer know what's authentic and how to actually now proofread their assignments and everything that they're doing. Whether it's now coming from their mind, or it's going to create some kind of laziness now, where everybody's just going to ask AI and then they'll just answer the questions. So assignments and assessments are meant to actually develop a skill, so that by the time you write an exam, you understand what you're doing. By the time you end up with your qualification, you can actually use the qualification in the work field. So we need to create a society that is competent. So in order to do that, I think by doing, so the systems has to be there. We need access to technology. We need those systems to be there and force those systems to be used. If a person feels like they still have an option, yes, they will choose to run away and shy away from the technology. So I believe, yes, we can teach and take them to so many trainings, because every semester we have refresher trainings that we run in order for them to use those systems, but without enforcing, I don't think. Yes, thank you so much.
And enforcement is by policy.
Yes, not just by policy. With the way we go there, it needs the person at the top to say, where are we? Reports. We need, where are the marks in the system? We need deadlines. By this time, we need marks to be there in the system. Publication date. We need to enforce this with deadlines and making sure that there's proof that those systems are being used. Because if you applied your leave by hand, then how are you going to know? The system automatically deducts your days. It knows how many you qualify for, then it will deduct how many you still have left. Then all that's needed is for the supervisor to approve your leave. So I think it's not about policy, because policy can be, you say people must get to work at 8, but then they will still be late, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Officer?
Thank you, Dr. Mahasi. In regards to equipping instructors, it is very important to do that. More so because we are expecting students to shift from being non-technical into being tech savvy. And the led instructors are going to be able to, how can I put it? They are going to be able to transfer their knowledge. When I look at my lecturer and I see them doing, I am inclined to be more like them because lecturers or instructors serve as role models. So the more they are being equipped and the more they are advancing their knowledge in different technological innovations, the more they'll be able to deliver and make students understand that we are in an era which is transforming, which is changing, which is not stagnant. So regular trainings of lecturers and instructors on the different technologies that are being introduced, especially for delivery. It is very important, and it has to be a regular practice for almost every institution. And also to try to encourage the lecturers, it is important that they get certain certifications that actually demand them to keep up with the pace of the technology as and when it is being introduced, as we're moving along with the times. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Okay, the other thing, we're talking about AI, the use of AI, and then I'm curious to know, because learners can use AI, lecturers can also use AI. So do we see the lecturers, the teachers using it creatively? Because we want our students also to use it creatively. Ma'am Opisa, you did mention that we don't want to allow students, in as much as yes, use AI, but now you don't want to give out an assignment and then they go to AI, they get the answers there. And then, so now I'm curious in two ways. How do we ensure that the lecturers themselves, they don't use AI in a non-creative way, which can also now push students also to use it in a non-creative way? Because at the end of the day, we still want research to be done in a proper way. We still want them to be, to practice critical thinking, for instance, to be analytical. But even us as lecturers, as the teachers, as the instructors, we need to show that. It can't just be that we want our learners to do that, but we don't practice it ourselves. So my curiosity is on that. Use of AI by us as the instructors, as the teachers. How do we use it in a creative way? Not just take something from Google or from the internet and then we just give it to students. Are we doing it? Are we encouraging it to us before we encourage it to students? And then also, once students you've given them assignments, are we able to see that they've used AI? Because if we are not able to see, that's also a cause for concern. Memko, you go first.
I mean, it's a difficult one, honestly. That's why I said before that it's now creating another dynamic that's very difficult to manage. Like I did say, if we integrate technology into the pedagogy, that means online systems are not a choice for certain assessments. That means our assessments, if they're online, using I don't want to mention the particular names of the software, but the anti-plagiarism softwares that they have today also have AI embedded in them. So they actually are able to say that this particular text was taken from a certain article or it's been copied. The copyright infringement is well embedded into the anti-plagiarism softwares. So I think with paper-based, it's going to be very difficult. If they are now still answering, with paper, so how are you going to proofread paper to say that this was not authentic, or it's going to be difficult. I think we're going to use the same technology to actually now, combat to see whether AI is being abused or not. And I think awareness is still important as well. Regular ICT interaction with lecturers. They have to always be working hand in hand with the academia. Support or admin working together with academia. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, May.
Thank you.
May Mukai, your view?
Thank you very much, Dr. Mohase. This is a very interesting topic. Just to indicate, just last week, we had a team from Spain that visited us in an exchange program. And they took us through a very interesting approach of AI, which they are actually implementing within their institution. They took us about how students can actually use AI for assignments. And we used concept like Notebook LM to come up with appropriate podcasts, posters, etc., etc. And they outlined how this approach can actually be integrated into an appropriate assessment approach. I was puzzled. I said, how am I going to teach my student how to actually use AI effectively in an assignment? But as we progressed, the emphasis was saying, even if you don't teach them, they're going to learn about it. Secondly, what matters is what are you assessing at the end of the day? Assessment is very important. As a software engineer, when I teach my students like on mobile application development, I now know that there are actual platforms that they can use not only for coding, but even for appropriate systems development, etc. I try and align that to real life situation. So my approach is now problem-based and not just a theoretical component. And my evaluation is how they're applying their knowledge into solving a real-time problem. So at the end of the day, I think such approaches can actually ensure that the students apply what they know to real-life situations and evaluation is appropriately done. But at the same time, as she mentioned, we have integrated AI detection models that have been included within the assessment. So if a student plagiarizes with the use of AI, we're able to identify it and they're penalized adequately. That becomes more of an assessment approach. But to what extent and until when are we not going to appreciate these technologies and that they use them? So we need to remodel. We need to talk about ethical use of AI, not only for the students, but for us as lecturers. When we set an assessment, it has to go through a plagiarism check, including an AI system that evaluates to what extent that paper has got AI components in them. That's the extent that most institutions are looking at this AI part. But I think we should start to rethink in how we integrate AI into the learning environment for the benefit of the students. Think about the concept of critical thinking, right? Which are very important because AI is evolving in a different sphere, and it's quite difficult for us to catch up at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, May. Memo Pisa.
Okay, May, the question is very interesting. In the adoption of AI, especially for instructors, before we can actually come to students, it's a little bit of challenging, which may be resourcefully responded to by considering policy adoptions that will maybe inform the how part of it. AI is here and it's not going to go away, but we need to be very creative around it. I was looking at a number of policies that actually some universities are using regarding the adoption of AI. And most policies are talking to the adoption or the use of AI by students disregarding the involvement of instructors. And when you look at it, it actually affects both. If I can go to AI to maybe download a question paper that I'm expecting my students to respond to, and I get defensive or angry, or do not like or despise the fact that they responded to my questions using AI, it somehow kicks the equation out of balance. If I use AI generated questions, the students have a right to, of course, go ask AI to respond to the questions that AI generated. So we need to, like Memo Gary says, we need to have mechanisms of looking into the question papers, the mode of instruction that has actually been informed by AI, and look if we are deliberately generating everything from AI, and then consider that with what we transfer to the students. So it is very important that we ourselves as instructors are not immensely leveraging our skills on what AI can do. Like you mentioned, critical thinking skills. Apologies there. Okay, so we also need to consider ethical adoption of AI, whereby instructors as well as students are taught how to use AI ethically. You can do copy and paste, but in academic sphere, we know that plagiarism is a no-no, is a no-no. And moreover, what we can also consider as the intelligence of people to discern information or content which has been plagiarized from the use of AI, and then consider what is the academic ethical standpoint say in regards to you copying directly from AI and then using that as your own. That is tantamount to plagiarism. So in the same breath, what is being done by instructors also need to, we need to check that against the principles or ethics of academic principles. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, thank you, ladies. There's a lot in this. Okay, I'm going to give you individual questions. So we're going to start with you, Meme Opisa. Yes, ma'am. Okay, from your experience in shaping ICT education, what mindset shift is most needed among students to thrive in the digital economy?
Okay, thank you for that question. It is very important to me because I have been in the education sector for over 16 years. And I have come to realize that there is no student or learner who cannot learn anything. They can learn almost anything provided they shift their mindset. It's not about their capability, or it's not about their lack of skills or skills gap, but it's all about a mindset shift. What am I talking about? Students come to, maybe from where they come from primary, they come to the education setting with the approach as an education is just a transaction. I go to school, I attend classes, I pass, and then I get maybe a degree, and after a degree or whatever certificate, then I can get a job. And it's not like that. Even if you have a qualification, a certain qualification, if you cannot answer or respond to a problem which is there, you can call yourself like, I have a master's degree in this, I have that. But if there is a situation whereby you cannot bring solutions that can be adopted by a certain industry, then that means there is a problem in the way you have approached your learning. So there needs to be a mindset shift. Now, we want students to be able to change from this mindset of maybe not being very particular about what they learn, like they want to learn everything, almost everything. We want them to be able to say, I can particularly be open to learning anything as long as I can be employable, or I can be able to provide a solution in a particular industry. So with that, we want students to be open-minded, to say, maybe, let me just give an example. So we have somebody who is doing, I don't want to talk about IT because I'm in IT, and most of what we do in IT of recent seems to be applicable to almost any particular sphere of learning. I can talk about HR. With HR, you have people who are dealing with people's issues in organizations. An HR person, if you maybe want them to be more adaptive, you can expose them to IT, because maybe they have systems that they need to use to manage the people. And that person, simply because they have an underlying basic of HR, they must be open-minded to learning about IT. And if you want to expose them again, maybe to help the workforce to be able to be resilient to the problems in the workspace, they must also be open to learning about what makes a certain employee to be able to be productive in the work environment. There is also another mindset shift that learners need to adapt to. We need to move away from focusing on a type of qualification and thinking that qualification will speak for you in the sense of responding to what the market demands. I recently, I think it was last year, I had a random visit to one of my neighbors, and while I was there, I saw a young boy outside on the garden. And when I looked at this guy, I was like, he looks familiar, but I couldn't remember what his name was. And in some correspondence with my neighbor, I ended up asking, who's that kid out there? And she was like, you don't know him, he's one of yours. Oh, one of ours? Okay, what's going on? Well, when I looked at him, I thought maybe he was not very stable. I don't know, but I had some crazy thoughts about him. And when I left the house, I went to talk to the boy, and I understood that he was our not our third year student, a fourth year student who has completed all studies. What was pending was just major project. This guy believed because he did not have the qualification, he was a nobody, and he ended up working as a gardener at a neighbor's yard. He was like waiting for a qualification to be something that actually promotes him or talks about him. So that's what I'm saying, it's a mindset. We need to shift from saying I have a qualification of this to saying I can do this to solve this. Even if I don't have a degree yet, I'm capable of providing such and such a solution to such and such a problem. The other thing that I think students need to move away from is being afraid of the technology. Technology is evolving and is very transformative to most of our lives. And if we are scared of exploring being part of the new innovations that are ongoing, now that is an issue. That means we will not be able to be part of the movement that takes the world in a certain direction, because now we are afraid of being curious. We are afraid of exploring. And the students, if they are afraid of that, they will never accept if they make mistakes, that the mistakes are just data. A mistake is just informing you that you need to change and do better, or learn from whatever you didn't get right and bring forth whatever right mindset to learn that, and then shift from where you were into something else. So there's a lot that I can say regarding this, but in general, what I see in most learners is just a mindset shift that we need to change. Accept that we don't know anything, or stop being very comfortable with what we know, and try to be very curious about different things that we can learn in everyday life, especially in the classroom. Thank you, ma'am.
Very true. Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am Mukai, this one is directed to you. How do we ensure that digital skills development keeps pace with rapidly evolving technologies like AI, rather than always reacting late?
Very difficult question. Yes, so just to outline that, yeah, truly speaking, we've been reactive in our curriculum development. So many factors that we can put across is the standards that have been stipulated or given in curriculum development. In a formal environment where regulations check and evaluation process in Lesotho Council of Higher Education verifies the standard of your program and gives you authority to run the program. This is time-based, meaning maybe 5 years before they review it again, sometimes 3 years. So as an academic institution, we have the liberty of waiting for the next 5 years before we even review the program. We're also at a situation where it's not a core mandate for us to continuously upgrade our curriculums, because we only have a 20% to 30% right to modify the curriculum without approval from the appropriate boards. But that doesn't mean we don't have the responsibility to ensure that we modify the curriculums according to the changes that are happening. So I actually think that we should stop being reactive on curriculum forecast, or what we call a curriculum focused approach, and we have to move into a proactive system-based approach. So in that instance, what does that look like? We can start looking at how the modules are developed within a given program. We need to modularize them. We need to ensure that we integrate appropriate modules or programs that can be easily modified according to the changes in the environment, if it's an environment program. One of my passion, I always talk of natural capital accounting, which is an emerging component that talks about how we can actually predict appropriate profit or appropriate impact of the environment. Can we put it that way? In the next 10 years, what changes can happen, and how much money can I make when they happen? How much money will I lose? When you realize and you look at a normal environment program, such components might not be there. But does it mean that we have to wait for regulation to modify them? No. It means we need to find appropriate ways that we can ensure that the programs are adequate. So besides modularization, which is one of the most approaches being used, if any changes happen in mobile application development, I can just integrate a new technology without reviewing the entire program, right? And then we talk about the synergy between our different organizations, academia, industry, and then you put across the importance of government. We have locally, we have a lot of incubation hubs that are there, different, some are within universities. Limco Queen has, NUL has, Butu University has. We have the Uniport, which is residing at LP. We also have government institutions that have also included their own initiatives, which are actually drivers to what we are talking about today. The question is, how do we work together to make it work? Another important thing that I always think about is how many times do we actually get to check where our graduates are? That should be part of the model. When you talk about a synchronized approach, we should be able to say, are we in track? How often do you check? Are we in track with our students? Are they relevant to the industry? So for me, when you talk about all these components, it's beyond just the classroom environment. It's beyond curriculum. It's us working together in synergy to make it work. And last but not least, I always say it's one thing to know about a technology. It's another to apply it in real life. It's another to have access to use that technology, the tools. And mostly, students get a clear gap between what they've learned in academic institutions and when they can apply it. And by the time they get to apply it, new technologies are now in place. So yes, we have adequate environments that are set, which I think the youth, the women and girls have to make use of, like the Uniport, where they need to access with the appropriate innovations so that they are not left out in all this ecosystem. So I actually think we all need to work together in synergy. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Memke. Meungwe, here is your question. What practical approaches can help bridge the gap between theoretical learning and hands-on digital competence in our context?
Okay. We firstly need to improve our infrastructure. There needs to be internet at schools and institutions of higher learning. There needs to be innovation hubs like Uniport. There needs to be labs. There needs to be accessibility to devices, because it's going to come to my next point of the second approach is also going to be industry partnerships. Industry partnerships that help us with plans that help students get cheaper devices, or plans that help they can pay with better rates and get lower data plans for internet. Usually during COVID, we worked together as well to do this reverse billing, whereby the institution could be charged and the students each get a SIM card in order for them to still be able to do work at home. So industry partnerships as well help us to get them internships. So this will also give them the practical way to apply the skills that we've taught them in the classroom. Industry partnerships also help us with, banks could also have different financing models for parents to be able, for the students to afford the devices, laptops and phones, the tablets, so on. So, and also the third approach is, which May has talked about, integrating into the academic, into the pedagogy. We need our curriculum to change, to have more practical use of the technology embedded in the curriculum, so that they have to use the technology in research. They have to use the technology in having to do designs, prototypes, all those kind of things that practically, like maybe because Rotary is a very practical school or institution rather, so we need our students to be using the technology a lot, not just by technology, I just don't mean ICT per se. So, so that they can use innovation hubs to bring solutions to everyday problems, local problems that we have here at home. So competitions, nice competition. I liked Botswana's presentation yesterday. They have these local competitions where they encourage students to also come up with solutions. I think it will help so that when they know they're gonna win something, then they're gonna be creative. And we need to have such approaches in our country, you know, to have them. I've seen robotics competitions in other countries, whereby students are expected to program something, you know, to innovate. So I think those initiatives will help to take the technology out of the classroom and just bring it to local everyday life. And having those, like I said, social media is appealing to the youth. Our students are young people, so we need to be relevant to where they are. And like I said, use TikTok and have links in the online platform that takes them to learning content and such. I think those are the 3 approaches I would go for. Yes, thank you.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you, Lume. We'll now go over to the audience. I'm looking at our time. I'm going to open the floor for a few questions. Okay, I can see one hand already up. Can we please have the mics?
Thank you very much to all our distinguished panelists. Very, very insightful conversations. I have 2 questions. I have a couple, but I'll just ask 2. And my first question is, anyone in the panel can respond to this. It's about the inequalities. We're talking about using devices in schools and, you know, ensuring that students are using artificial intelligence. But we all know the realities on the ground. There are schools in underserved communities, and then there are schools that are more advanced. So my question will be, how do we ensure that we close that gap of inequality between those schools in underserved communities rather than widening the gap while trying to advance in terms of technology? And the second question will be about the teachers, right? You know, how do we ensure that we support, that technology supports teachers without undermining their role? And by their role, I'm talking about the human role of teachers as mentors, as disciplinarians, and as emotional anchors. So those are my 2 questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone willing to go first, ladies? Okay, Mengo, please go ahead.
On the first question, I'd like to
Okay,
go for
okay.
that one. I think that's where we now rely on government and industry partnerships. I think I forgot to mention as well that with industry partnerships also, we are also looking for sponsorships, you know, for devices. We are hoping for such approaches for also the companies that are here. I don't want to mention too much, but I saw Econet, I saw Postbank, I saw, you know, they need to also go as far as maybe even sponsoring certain schools with computers, with tablets, with all that, and for those companies as well and the government to work together to make sure that infrastructure is there. But I have seen as well some companies are also giving labs to certain schools. So I think there needs to be that analysis that government does to see the gap that we have in, like I also did mention, rural areas also are left behind, because affordability will also be difficult since they don't have that formal income that we're looking for, that will want a parent's pay slip in order for them to afford the devices. So I think we look up to government to give funds to close those gaps and for industry to also help with sponsorship. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mengo. Anyone to go for the second question? Okay, Memo, please.
I have a second question referred to the technological support to teachers without undermining their role. I just wanted to make sure that I got that clear. The the technology can be adopted into teaching and learning by being a career of the knowledge that can come from the teacher to the students. Why am I saying this? As a lecturer or as a teacher, I do my preparations, but I'm expecting my students to be able, beyond the classroom, to learn further and be able to engage with the content while I'm not there. So that means the technology can come in terms of an LMS. They can have pre-recorded sessions that can remind them of what we have dealt with in class. And also on the same platforms, the LMSs, the students can actually engage with the classroom content or the course content. And I can be able, as a lecturer, to use the technology to track and monitor the progress of my students. And the technology can also be complementary to what the teacher is doing. We can talk about maybe shorts from TikTok. We can talk about YouTube videos where students can actually go there and supplement whatever has been given to them. And we can talk about e-libraries where books can be resourced by or accessed by students to complement or supplement whatever has happened into the classroom. So when you look at the technology in that essence, or even AI in itself, it is actually helping support the learning process without being a hindrance or without undermining the role that the teacher or the instructor is actually playing. Even going beyond into the assessment, the technology can still be deployable to support the role that the teacher is actually playing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. I'm going to request one, because I know you'll find that people have more than one question. So I'll just allow one per person. So you go Ndate and then Melerato. I saw another hand that side. Okay, I can, from here I can see 2 hands that side. 3, okay. The light is in my eyes, so at that side I cannot see properly. So Ndate, you go after you, Melerato. 1 question per person, please.
All right. Thank you very much. My name is Leonard Obonyo from the CTO. Now, when we talk about meaningful connectivity, there are 2 aspects, digital inclusion and digital divide that you're trying to bridge. To what level is the Ministry of Education involved in conversations at national level to ensure that there's meaningful access, meaningful communication, and there's digital inclusion, such that not some all schools are connected and not only some and others left behind in all regions? At what level is the ministry involved in this conversation with the Ministry of ICT, with the LCA, to ensure that all schools are connected, not just a few of them? Even when we talk about AI, those who have access are to an advantage. Those who don't have access are left behind. To what level is the ministry involved in these conversations? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Should I? Okay.
Okay. They are the best to answer, but fortunately I was part of the project where when I heard of it, I actually went down, knocking down their doors. LCA, the government, together with the Lesotho Communications Authority, had a project whereby they were connecting free of charge all the schools and all the tertiary institutions. It came in phases. They went to schools and they went to tertiary institutions as well. So luckily I've worked in 2 institutions that they've offered that connectivity. So they gave 3 years of free internet, only 3 years. So I'm not quite sure then what happens to survival of some of them that aren't, that don't have big pockets to actually sustain that. But I think I can only speak of this because I was part of the people that benefited, or part of the institution that benefited from that. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Melerato? Okay.
Yeah, this is probably the one panel I've been looking forward to the most, because, I have to say that education with the advent of technology is perhaps the most disrupted, quietly so, but it is actually the most disrupted model of value creation that I have seen to date. So it's not just the tech itself, it's what the tech is doing to the fundamental model of education that has been built decades before, and that now has to be changed somehow. The question that I have for you is around the educational outcomes. So the panel discussion has focused quite a lot on the how. So how can we do it? You know, how do we improve standardized testing? How do we get the kids to use the tech? How do we get the educators to use the tech? My question is on fundamentally, what is the education of tomorrow supposed to help us achieve that complements AI, right? And the reason I'm asking this is we're still training kids to become generalists in an era where the machines take care of the general knowledge and the humans must become hyper specialists in something. And I love that you talked about modularization, but the question is what modules of education are we going to focus on? Have we started having that conversation? When are we going to have that conversation? Because I am worried about the model and how it's being disrupted.
Thank you, Leonard. Do we have? Okay, man. Is it? Pardon? Okay. Food for thought. Okay, I think one question that side I had seen, yes, please. Two. And then afterwards I will close. Okay. Okay.
Thank you very much. I think you, Dr. Mohasi, may also answer this one. We talked about integrating the use of AI in educational systems so that we're hoping it will help them think of the assignment, not actually do the assignment. So the technology is evolving. It's not only AI. We now talk things of data analytics. We talk of cybersecurity. So what are you as institutions doing in terms of integrating these cybersecurity into their curriculum? Say maybe also have it at a bachelor's or certificate level, because in the country currently we do not have any institution offering a cybersecurity course at a bachelor's. If I want to do that cybersecurity or data analytics, I have to go to another country. So what is the plan so that maybe at a young age, maybe a child of 5 had something of cybersecurity. Now they actually want to do this cybersecurity. What are you guys doing in terms of integrating these now relevant courses into the curriculum? Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that question, ma'am. What we are currently implementing, I'll talk for Limco Queen University. We have courses. Of course, we don't have a course that is actually named cybersecurity, but we are having cybersecurity programs that are offered at our institution, courtesy of Fortinet. So we are looking into making sure that our graduates, when they come out of our school, they are not only holding their degree certification, but they're also holding some specialization in cybersecurity. And I'll just touch a little bit on AI. We are also offering AI, even though we are not offering it as a specialization. And we are not on data analytics yet. We just briefly. So somehow we are, of course, on the train. We are introducing these new and relatively relevant concepts today. Yes. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Mohasi. Just to respond to Ntate from CTO as well.
Oh, okay.
When you talked about to what extent is Ministry of Education participating in digital inclusion, digital divide, the initiative that Ministry of Communications and Ministry of Education did, which is currently going on along with LCA, is one of the main funders, community-based digital learning centers, where the community is actually being given an opportunity to go to the schools and learning centers to learn about technology with a given instructor dedicated for that center. So I think there's alignment with them working together as far as that is concerned. Also, the concern brought about, I don't want it to make it an institutional part or to say, as we're doing this, but there are emerging courses that are responding adequately to the demands of emerging technologies. We have, I understand NUL already have some program that responds to statistics, that responds to data science, which university also has data science program that actually is starting in June, and online campus, we also have such modules. Cybersecurity is also available as a program. Mind you, some of these emerging technologies are being derailed because of policy. Why I'm saying that? We cannot move into a fully fledged cybersecurity program when you don't have an appropriate bill that talks to that, because these cybersecurity trained individuals are going to be able to go and test how good your systems are. So there has to be an alignment with that, as academic institutions are pushing towards such high-level programs. There also has to be appropriate bills and policies that ensure they protect the citizens as well. Thank you, ma'am.
Very true. Our program director is waiting for us to finish, so I'm not able to continue with more questions, unfortunately. This has been our panel discussion. Higher learning, there's a lot that we need to do. There's a lot that has to be done, and we need to keep pushing. We need to keep pushing, and also capacitating everyone, our lecturers, our teachers, our learners as well. And as we are talking about digital inclusion, as mentioned earlier, it's not just about owning devices. People can have a person, I've seen people, you find that they have the smartest phone, they have a tablet, they have a laptop, but then when it comes to using those efficiently, yeah. So you can't really talk about digital inclusion if someone has those and then they cannot use them efficiently, or they don't even know how. So we also have to reach out throughout the whole of the country, not just focus where people are able to afford. Accessibility, affordability, we have to. I would also like to add to what Mayor Lerato spoke about earlier, when you talk about LLMs, and that we should own them. I support her on that, because I've worked with LLMs, so I understand what she means. And yes, as Lesotho, it's one of the things that we should look into. Using our own, we create our own database of Lesotho, and then we use that for AI. AI shouldn't just be about what you get from Gemini, what we get from all these other AI tools. We should also try and look more into developing our own, and also maybe that the one that also uses our own Lesotho orthography. South Africa, they have Sesotho, but they use a different orthography, meaning the way that they write Sesotho. So we should venture more into having our own, and we have a lot of potential. So I would like to encourage us, all of us, and especially women out there, let's please push for that and look into it. And as institutions of higher learning, this is more on us more than anything else. So we have to work on it and push towards it. Ladies, thank you very much for your contribution. This has been very, very engaging and also productive and significant. So let's push more. Thank you, everyone, and thank you for the questions. Thank you.
Kim.
Thank you very much. Can we give them a huge round of applause, please? Clearly, a lot has been done, but clearly also a lot has not been said. So we need to actually start creating more awareness on what is available and what is not available. But like Dr. Mohasi actually mentioned, and which also is a bit sad, is as technology evolves every day, we are not, as institutions, evolving as fast. We are not, as institutions, not evolving as fast. We as a regulator are definitely not evolving fast enough, and that is primarily because it takes long to even legislate some of these policies and bills. We heard just on Monday that we have the cybersecurity bill, which has been in a draft form for the last 11 years. So with the changes that come in every month, that bill has now become a stumbling block to many things that we may achieve with that bill in place. But also, I guess, even if the panel discussion has ended, we can take the conversations even outside this room during lunch. So for those who feel we still need to understand, please make sure that you are available and you can talk to the panelists, any one of them, and then you continue with the conversations during lunch. And I'm glad that we talked about ethical AI. I was actually, Nade PS is no longer in here, but at some point there's a student that has completed software engineering. So I was asking Nade PS, there's a student here who has completed software engineering degree level. So do you have any links that can get her in contact with international organization that may be interested in her skills? And of course, Nade PSA gave me the links and I shared with the student. And then I think 3 years down the line, I met the student again. I said, hey, how are you? Are you still here? I said, no, I'm still here. I said, did you use those links? I said, yeah, I did use these links. And then I said, no, but now the challenge is they want me to have live interviews doing coding. And I'm like, so what's the problem? He says, no, because remember, I did my coding during COVID, so we're doing it online. So AI has been helping me with coding. So I really have no business having a camera looking at me and doing physically now my own coding. And I was like, what are you talking about? He says, yeah, my whole degree AI, and I just laughed it off. But those are the challenges that we face every day, and those are what our institutions should be teaching the students, that let's use AI, but let's use it ethically. You can't claim your whole degree being based on AI, because it scares us if we are now going to be dependent on doctors who did the whole medical training on AI. That is going to be very scary. So, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of our second panel discussion, and I now invite you for lunch. I'm sure you all have the coupons, and for delegates that will be traveling later today or tomorrow, please make sure that you stop by the front desk and actually do your registration there. And for delegates who are joining us for the cultural dinner in Thaba Bosiu, also make sure that the ushers do know that you'll be joining, so that they prepare accordingly. And remember, when I talk about delegates, I'm actually talking about the international delegates. And when I talk about the locals, I'll just refer to you as participants. And then participants, you know where Thaba Bosiu is, so we don't have to say much about that. Thank you. Let us meet right here at 10 past 2.